Hello everyone, my name is Nick, and today I'm going to present my case study news story. The article that I chose was written by the National Observer and revolves around the impact of the Canadian government's 2017 budget and how it affects Indigenous people. It is titled "Here is what Budget 2017 means for Indigenous people." I'll be providing background on the news story, presenting it in its historical context, as well as addressing the issue in its legal context and discussing a few implications. The news story discusses the Trudeau government's proposed investment in health, infrastructure, education, and employment in Indigenous communities that will total approximately $12 billion in over 6 years. This investment in Indigenous communities is part of the government's initiative to reconcile with Indigenous people in Canada after decades of marginalization, neglect, and suffering that have left Indigenous people in extremely poor socioeconomic conditions. It is also a response to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee's 94 calls to action in their 2015 report that provided specific recommendations on how to reconcile with Indigenous people by recommending specific action steps to improve Indigenous communities, which targeted health, welfare, infrastructure, education, and employment. First, I would like to provide a historical overview that shows why Indigenous people in Canada have been left in such dire conditions. Post-contact from European settlers, Indigenous people began to lose sovereignty of the land through colonialization from settlers that forcefully took control over Indigenous land. The doctrine of discovery, famously coined by Chief Justice John Marshall, was created to legitimize the colonialization of these lands. As a result, Indigenous people began to lose their titleship and became merely occupants of the land they had originally claimed. This has resulted in Crown ownership of modern Indigenous lands and should still be recognized as an infringement of Indigenous people's rights. How has the Crown's ownership of Indigenous land, and how does it relate to the 2017 budget? Well, there are several characteristics and challenges of reserve land. Most notably, reserve lands are often situated in very remote areas that prevent quality access to healthcare. They provide scarce resources to its inhabitants and are often very much neglected by their governments. Secondly, the federal government is responsible for the allocation of funds for infrastructure in Indigenous communities, and we can see how important the Trudeau government's proposal is to ensuring the adequate development of these communities. It is evident that Indigenous people are powerless in the development of their communities as they are dependent on the decisions of the government, specifically for regulation and for the development of infrastructure. Notably, the inability to be recognized as owners of the land has prevented Indigenous communities from being able to raise capital and use the land as collateral in efforts to improve their communities without government funding. As noted, the Trudeau government's proposed investment is an attempt to improve the poor socioeconomic conditions that plague Indigenous people across Canada. To put into context, non-Indigenous people's median income is 35% more after tax than those of Indigenous people. Even more frightening is the disturbing fact that if Canada's population was solely Indigenous, it would rank 63rd in quality of life versus the rest of the world, putting into perspective how difficult it has been for Indigenous people to meet basic human needs. Now, diving into the legal aspect of this current issue, there have been multiple treaties that have been signed between the Canadian government and Indigenous people in an attempt to equally share the land. Aboriginal people have been unable to reap the economic benefits of this shared land created by these treaties, many of which these lands are rich in natural resources, and this has been a result of the Canadian government depriving Aboriginal people from its use. As well, the unfortunate reality has been that these treaties have further oppressed Indigenous communities, with the mass exploitation of land resources by the government and a failure to apportionate accordingly to Indigenous communities. The issue has been that the treaties have been interpreted differently between the Canadian government and Indigenous people, but the actual written text in the treaties has typically favored the Canadian government. The written text is always more likely to be upheld in court, resulting in many unfavorable judgments by the courts when disputes have arisen between the Canadian government and Indigenous communities. Courts must now acknowledge the exploitation of Indigenous land by the Canadian government and its negative implications on Indigenous people that have resulted in the deprivation of basic human needs from poor socioeconomic living conditions, and recognize this as an infringement of Indigenous people's basic human rights under the Charter. The Truth and Reconciliation calls to action do not remedy the treaty situation because they are merely guidelines and are not enforceable, nor are they legally binding. The impact of the Truth and Reconciliation Committee's 94 calls to action prompted the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. This has put a lot of political pressure on the Canadian government to adopt these standards to align with the reconciliation strategy. But it is still unclear how these rights will affect Canadian and international law. As must be noted, these are still merely, again, only standards, not in fact enforceable or legally binding, failing to provide a mechanism to hold the Canadian government accountable and allowing the Canadian government to still put their interests before those of Indigenous people. So again, to conclude, what does the 2017 budget really mean for Indigenous people? Well, looking back, decades of neglect from the Canadian government, resulting in unseen growth in Indigenous communities, the aftermath of the residential school system, and continued unfavorable treaties that have been negotiated between the Canadian government and Indigenous people have resulted in the poor socioeconomic conditions faced in Indigenous communities. As a result, the Trudeau government is attempting to resolve these poor socioeconomic factors by investing in Indigenous communities in infrastructure, education, employment, and healthcare with the proposed $12 billion investment over the next 6 years. What's important to now look at is to see if the Trudeau government will be able to uphold their efforts to reconcile with Indigenous communities while they balance their federal political agendas moving forward.